Let's start at the end, because after losing 6 of their first 7 penalty shootouts in major tournaments, England has now won 3 of their last 4, all 5 penalties successfully converted. They won't care how they played, they'll just care how they got through. But you can explain how they played today. How were England?
Well, there's no question they were better than they've been previously in this tournament, which I guess you could say wouldn't have been difficult. I think there's no question in the first half they're the better side. And actually, I found it quite frustrating because the amount of times that they actually got in and around the final third, particularly in wide areas in that first half, and never put the ball in the box. I mean, you've got Harry Kane, you've got Bellingham desperate to get in the box on the end of something that's put in. And I'm not suggesting that you just keep throwing balls in the penalty box. It just gets frustrating that, it's get it wide, get it back, come back around, then you do the same and back around and pretty much going sideways. You're doing that to open up something for either a pass or to be able to deliver. And generally the chance to deliver was what was available, but they never took it. And as I said, it's not about throwing the ball in the box for no apparent reason. If you keep doing that, then eventually the coach or somebody on the field is going to tell the opposition to close the ball, and then the space opens up in behind the man that goes and closes. So I found it a little frustrating. Yes, England were way better than they have been. I thought they were the best side first half, and actually started the second half. I thought they started pretty well up until maybe the 55th minute, and then Switzerland, for me, kind of took over the game, certainly possession-wise. Didn't look particularly dangerous. And then, of course, eventually they did get a goal, and it was actually quite fortuitous. And again, it came about because they were just willing to put the ball in the box. It's thrown in. John Stones has to stretch. He ends up playing it across the box, and then Bolo gets on the end of it. It's a scruffy goal, but it comes about because Switzerland just put a ball in the box. And from there, you're thinking, is England going to get what they deserve the way they've played the most of this tournament? But you know what? When you've got players with ability, and today it was Saka's turn to turn up. The last time out, it was Mr. Jude Bellingham, and today it was Saka's turn. Coming inside on that superb left peg of his, and a goal that some of them never saw, through the legs of Granit Xhaka, and just started outside that right-hand post, bent it back in off the post. Goalkeeper just had no choice but just to watch it going in the back of the net. And of course, that basically was the end of it. The extra time, the 2 periods were pretty much about nobody making any mistake. And then, as you said at the start, let's go to the end and the penalty shootout.
A lot to get through. Let's start with England's formation. You said they played a lot better in the first half. How much of that was helped by going with 3 at the back and then 4 in midfield with 2 in behind Harry Kane?
100%. Absolutely 100%. Previous games, they had gotten the ball in wide areas, but never with any real pace on it, never with any time to do anything, and just, as I said, had to shuffle back. The fact that they had an extra body in the middle of the park meant that when the ball did go wide, generally it was Trippier on that left-hand side and Saka on the right. They had a lot more time and space. And so when you've got a lot more time and space and you've got the ability, particularly that Saka has, then you look a lot more dangerous. And Saka was dangerous today. 3 or 4 times, probably 3 in the first half, he got in behind the fullback and cut balls back, but unfortunately couldn't pick anybody out. That was not happening in the previous games. So there's no question that the change of formation worked. It was the right thing to do. Just a little unfortunate they've taken so long to do it.
They've been very clinical with the efforts they've had on goal, England. Their only shot in the 90-minute on target ended up in the back of the net. Will we ever see Gareth Southgate be more proactive than reactive? Because after Switzerland scored, he then makes the triple change with Konsa, Trippier and Menu being replaced by Palmer, Eze and Shaw. Is that just him? Things have to happen for him to react to them rather than him being proactive? Or do we see the back three today as an example of maybe he is open to a little bit of change?
Oh, keep dreaming. No, listen, even he had to change. The tripe that they had produced previously, even he had to make a change. So, I mean, you got to think that he's going to keep that, and he should keep it for the semi-final. But let's be honest, the four major tournaments, I believe it is, that he's been in charge, he's been exactly the same. He's been safe, and as you said, he reacts. He doesn't try and do anything outside the box because he doesn't think outside the box. And again, he makes the three changes because they're forced upon him. You know, I don't think there's anybody, never mind if you're a qualified coach or not, anybody's going to make changes. You're a goal down, you've had the same formation for 70 minutes, maybe, something like that, I think it was. So every man and his dog's going to make a change. So, no, to answer your question, no, he's not thinking outside the box. He never will think outside the box. And I said, the history of him being in charge has shown that, and I think we saw it again today.
If you were an England fan, would you rather have that caution that somehow gets results? This is England through to back-to-back European Championship semi-finals for the first time ever. And however he does it, he finds a way of doing it. Or do you think this group of players, given freedom to play, could be doing better in these games that they've already seen so far? What do you reckon?
Look, the wish list is you play well and you win the tournament.
Obviously.
Your second wish is you just win the tournament. And basically, it doesn't really matter how you play. Go and ask Deschamps, go and ask France. You know, World Cup winners, European champions. I mean, they don't care how they play. And Deschamps has said it.
Mm-hmm.
Deschamps actually sits in a press conference and says, I don't care. I don't care who we play. If they want to have the ball, they can have the ball. You know, it's all about winning. And quite frankly, if England stink it up for the rest of the tournament and win, no England fans are going to care. Absolutely not one iota.
Have England been tested yet in this tournament?
Ooh. Well, I think it's safe to say that so far, with all due respect to Switzerland, and Switzerland have had a good tournament. They've played some decent football. We didn't see it today, but you know, I'm a great believer that that didn't surprise me today. You know, Switzerland are a side that against the better teams can get results, but when the pressure's on them and they seem, because in my eyes, regardless of the names on the jersey, the way Switzerland were playing and the way England were playing, Switzerland were the favourites coming into this game, just purely on the football that's been played. But it seems to me that every time Switzerland put themselves in that position, they can't quite follow it through. And I think we saw that again today. They couldn't quite follow it through. They got themselves ahead, but they couldn't quite keep the lead long enough and keep England out. And so, have England, I guess they've been tested. You know, defensively they've been pretty solid. They've been, you know, today they made some good challenges when it mattered most. But it's the old question for England. You know, next time out it's Netherlands and then probably France if they beat the Netherlands. So now they have to show they can do it against a proper team. The question is still to be answered because in previous tournaments they haven't managed to answer that question.
Given they've been favourites, I think, in every game in this tournament that they've played so far, and haven't really responded in that swashbuckling style that a lot of favourites you would hope would do and go out and destroy the opposition or just play with a flair. When they come up against a better side, and I think if it is the Dutch who beat Turkey, that'll probably be the best team they've played. And then regardless, it's France or Spain if they reach the final, they will be the favourites against England. Gareth Southgate's not going to change much, is he, when he plays better teams?
No, he has an idea of how he wants the game to be played, and regardless of the opposition, he sticks to it. I think that's the frustration when they play so-called lesser teams, that, you know, there's not this swashbuckling attitude about it to go out and not just dominate the opposition, but play exciting, fast-attacking football. You know, that's just not his mantra. And so when they're average against average teams, it's harder to beat the better teams. And the better teams, when they get their nose ahead, will shut England out. Again, we keep going back to the Southgate teams of old in previous tournaments. When they've got themselves in positions, then it hasn't happened because they don't seem to take that next step.
Harry Kane, discuss. Because he's a brilliant player and he's had a brilliant season with Bayern Munich, but he doesn't get that involved in this setup. And that was a change of system today with Foden and Bellingham more central in behind him. And I think the closest anyone came to Harry Kane was Gareth Southgate just before he got substituted. He didn't really have the impact. Is that on him or is that on the system?
I absolutely don't think it's on him at all. You know, I would argue that any centre forward on the planet would struggle to shine the way this England team has played thus far in the tournament. You know, I was talking earlier about how they were getting the ball in wide areas with more time and space, and that means that you're able to get your head up and either pick somebody out or have the time to put it in a dangerous area. You know, as a centre forward, the wide man would prefer to pick you out, but if not, he puts it in the dangerous area, and then it's your job to get on the end of it. That never happened once today for Harry Kane. Not once did anybody try and pick him out, and not once that I can remember did anybody ever just get their head up and whip a ball into a dangerous area, hoping that he could get on the end of it, or it would fall for somebody else, or even one of the Swiss would stick it in their own net. So with that kind of service, I'm not so sure how Harry Kane's supposed to shine. And again, with the formation, the 3-4-3, you know, if Harry Kane's dropping back in, there is enough bodies there. You've got Phil Foden in there, who's dropping in there looking to get on it. So I honestly can't really, in all honesty, point the finger at Harry Kane. I think there's no question that he must have re-injured his back because, 10 minutes before the end of a penalty shootout, you want all your penalty takers. But then you got to say, England, historically, all this, you know, Southgate himself missed a penalty in a major competition. People like David Batty missed. Chris Waddle missed, who doesn't take penalties. Stuart Pearce missed, who kind of took penalties. You look at this England side, it's full of guys that take penalty kicks for the club. You know, Saka, penalty taker. Ivan Toney, penalty taker. Trent Alexander-Arnold, penalty taker. Bellingham, penalty taker. Who have I missed? I've missed one out. But they're all penalty takers. So, and I think in the shootout, you saw the difference. Cole Palmer, thank you. You saw the difference in the penalty kicks. I mean, there's no question that a lot of these Swiss players had never taken penalties before. I mean, Akanji takes the first one. He's all over the shop. He loses his balance after he strikes the ball. It just smacks of somebody who's not quite sure in that position really what they're all about, which is the complete opposite, as we saw in the England penalties. Every single one of them in total control, never panicked, knew exactly what they wanted to do. They waited for the goalkeeper to move. They put it on the other side. I mean, it was an absolute clinic. Every single one of them was never in doubt. And so, right now, for sure, the old adage of England losing penalty shootouts just shouldn't happen.
Well, they've won 3 of their last 4, and all of those players showed bottle. They all scored. You showed bottle in 1984 in the Champions League final, the European Cup final back then, to take the first penalty. Now, it didn't work out for you personally, but it worked out for you as a team. What do you need to have, as well as ability, to be able to say, I'll take one, Gaffer?
You know, it's a real simple, straightforward answer. It's repetition. It's being in that position time after time after time, so that when all of a sudden the spotlight is on, is it different? Yes, it is. But is it completely different? No, it's not. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about with the Swiss players. They may have taken a penalty, and it may have been in training once. It may have been last week when they were practicing. But you look at the England players, every single one of them have taken countless penalty kicks. And so when it comes to the big stage, when the spotlight's on, the uncertainty's not there. The confidence that you're going to put the ball in the back of the net there. The clear head is there because you've been in that position before. All of the things that you can quite rightly say that clearly the Swiss players weren't in, maybe apart from Shaqiri. But you know what? The problem is you got to take 5, not just 1 or maybe 2. And that was the difference in this penalty shootout.
A 2-part question for you before we go to break, and it's regarding the semi-final. Mark Gahey returns after suspension. So does he go straight back into the team instead of Ezri Konsa? And if so, do they stick with the 3 at the back? And the second part of that question, if you're Gareth Southgate, how do you involve Harry Kane more in this upcoming semi-final?
Well, I'll be pretty surprised if... Or will it be... See, that's the problem. See, it seems harsh on Gahey because he's had a good tournament. But I think that Konsa has more experience of playing in a back 3. And so that is the decision that Southgate has to make. And actually, I don't think there's a wrong decision because, as I said, Gahey's been great and Konsa's more used to playing in that 3. The problem is Gareth Southgate. Does he do what he seems to do when it comes down to these decisions? And he seems, for me anyway, to go with the loyalty aspect when he should be going with, at the end of the day, what's best for the team. And I guess if it was me,
you're
I would
undecided here, aren't you?
Well, I am, because it's tough on Gahey. But at the end of the day, you haven't played the 3 before. I don't think Gahey plays 3 with Palace. He hasn't played it with England, but Konsa does. He's played it with his team. He's also played it in this game and looked comfortable. So I think it would be a tough decision. It would be harsh on Gahey, but I would play Konsa. And 100%, the second part is the easiest answer. He cannot go back to what he was doing previously. Well, because there's a reason why he changed. Because it just quite blatantly didn't work what they were doing. So it would make no sense. And even as safe as he can be, I don't see any way he goes back to playing 4. And if he does, then he's asking for trouble. He's asking
100%. 100%. And Harry Kane, how are you involving him more in this semi?
Well, I think every centre forward benefits from a more fluid team behind them. And I think today there was a little bit of fluidity. Certainly there was more fluidity than we've seen in this tournament. And that can only be good for Harry Kane or whoever plays centre forward, regardless of whether it's Harry Kane. So, yeah, I mean, it's a centre forward is always going to rely on what's going on behind them and certainly what's going on in the wide areas. So, yeah.
Maybe in 1984, you shouldn't have looked at the ball a bit like Ivan Toney Did he? I don't know how he does that, by the way. I mean, that's something else. His penalty record's frightening, and he still finds the back of the net. What's that all about?
If I knew that, I would have scored my penalty.